One Piece SBS Volume 102 is out, and we might have actually just gotten the end to the whole Zoro versus Sanji debate. But before we get to that, click that sub button. In case you haven't noticed by my literal 2 subscribers at the time of this recording, this channel is very new and I can't get anywhere forward without your guys' support. So I would very appreciate that. Drop a like, leave a comment. But without further ado, let's get to it. So in this SBS, we got a lot of neat information. We got visual designs and names for used as kids crew members, which is pretty cool. And we did get an interview with Jinbei's voice actor, but we'll leave that for another time because right now we want to focus on this one question, right? You guys are probably familiar with this very famous cover spread from chapter 1031 of the Second in Command. So Oda did get a question about this particular cover spread, right? And I'm going to be reading from a couple of different translations, 3 to be exact. And the first one I want to address is by user Etemboy. And the question at hand is the following. Hello, Odachi. Judging from the color spread from chapter 1031, Beppo is the number 2 of the Heart Pirates. I was surprised since I thought him, Penguin, and Chachi were all number 2s. So is Beppo the strongest out of them? And Oda replied by saying, talking about that color spread, huh? The same goes for Zoro. Not everyone in there holds the position of vice captain. They are just the number 2s that I picked out. Penguin and Chachi are more reliable in normal circumstances, but those two have seen Beppo's Sulon form transformation, and they acknowledge that combat-wise, Beppo is superior. So let's rewind because first of all, this does give us the confirmation of Beppo Sulon form, which I think is pretty cool. But the very first, the second sentence, it says the same goes for Zoro. Not everyone there is the vice captain. Now, take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt because we still don't have translations from the 2 most reliable source, which will be Sandman. I believe Sandman at IPA. I'll drop his Twitter handle over here, and Library of Ohara. So I'm still waiting out for them. We got this translation. We got another one from Epicon, and we got one from Oro Japan, but his was more of a paraphrase, right? And what this implies is very different depending on which translation is being used, particularly the one from Etemboy and the Epicon one. So this one from Etemboy suggests that Zoro is not the vice captain of the Straw Hats, which is very interesting because when Usopp tried to join the crew, if you remember, Usopp said that he'll only join if he becomes the captain. That got denied, and then he said, fine, I'll be vice captain then, and no one argued with that. And then back in chapter 179, Zoro and Sanji were arguing about being scared whether Luffy would lose to Crocodile, and Usopp's thinking to himself, oh crap, these people are arguing. As vice captain, I should do something about this, right? As second in command, he says. And even though this is definitely humor, even though this is definitely Usopp on his own, 2 things Usopp lies keep turning into reality time and time and time again. And on top of that, this is definitely the type of route that Oda would go. Not saying that I think that this is where he's going, because I believe that either it's Zoro or that it's no one, because the Straw Hats don't necessarily stick to these formalities, I guess you could say. But either ways, I do like the idea of Usopp being second in command, and I do see it as a very realistic Oda route. But that aside, if this translation is accurate, Oda did say that the same goes for Zoro as with Beppo, and he did say that they picked Beppo because Chachi and Penguin acknowledge him as superior combat-wise. And if that's the case, then I guess that puts an end to the whole Zoro versus Sanji debate. I'm very much of a Sanji fanboy. I love both Zoro and Sanji, just so that we're clear. So even though I realistically knew that Zoro would probably be stronger because he's just portrayed in that light, I do think that Oda does his best to balance it out. And I do think that there is a strong possibility is that they might be equal or extremely close, because for example, take a look at King and Queen. We used to see them as very near to each other. People would put King here and they would put Queen here, right? But then what happens? Zoro has a very high the fight against King, and then Sanji absolutely stomps Queen, and people are thinking, oh, Queen is trash, right? When that's not necessarily the case. I think that's Oda showcasing that it's like, hey, you know what? Like, king is here, queen is here. Zoro barely beat king, and Sanji beat queen by a lot, so it kind of balances them out. That's the way that I personally see it. Because if there was that big of a gap between Zoro and Sanji, then Sanji should have definitely either lost to Queen or have a very high def fight against Queen. But he absolutely stomped him, the second in command of a Yonko. Let's not forget that back in Whole Cake Island, and we don't know how, I don't like power scaling based on titles because this definitely varies within crews. But Cracker being the number 3 of Big Mom, and we've seen that these crews are relatively comparable. Cracker gave Luffy an extremely hard time. Right? He was Big Mom's number 3, technically number 4, because they only took him out because I forgot the name of this other one, the one that lost to Eustace, to I believe Kid or Rouge. Then he got replaced by Cracker. So take it for what it is. That's the way that I view it. But it seems like this might be the end of that debate based on whether this translation is true. But let's move on to the other one, right? Epicon's translation says, you're definitely talking about that cover. Zoro and not all of the others on the cover bear the title of deputy captain. Then he goes on to say about Chachi and Penguin being reliable in normal circumstances, but Beppo being stronger combat-wise, that doesn't matter. But then if this translation is accurate, then this will implies pretty much kind of the opposite. It leaves the question more open-ended because it does confirm, hey, Zoro is the vice captain, so that's why he's there. Not necessarily because he's the number 2 strongest in the crew. So that one does leave room for debate for Zoro and Sanji being on the more equal playing field, which, knowing Oda, I don't think he would settle that debate through an SBS. So I personally tend to gravitate towards this answer, especially because Orwell Japan's paraphrase, he completely left out the whole Zoro thing. And I don't think he would leave it out if Oda did say that Zoro was the number 2 strongest, because this is very big, right? Orwell Japan says the following. On this color double page thread, Oda says that not all characters pictured are necessarily vice captains of their crew. Penguin and Chachi are more reliable under normal circumstances, but these 2 characters have seen Beppo's Zulon transformation. They know that Beppo is superior in combat. For the colored double page spread, Oda simply chose these characters to represent the number 2s. So guys, that's all I have for right now. Like I said, this seems open-ended. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Do you think Zoro's stronger? Do you think Sanji's stronger? Do you think Zoro's the vice captain? Do you think Usopp's the vice captain? Do you think it's gonna be Jinbei? Do you think it's none of them? I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts and comments on this? Yeah, that's the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.